back on the record at 12:20 Eastern. Mr. Swenson, how would you describe your role in this whole process? Exactly what was it you were supposed to do?
We already went through all of that. You want to do it again?
Okay, well, here's my question. What's the difference between you coming and meeting with me at my home and asking me all the questions on an application and signing it and having me sign it versus the insurance company just mailing me an application in the mail and me filling it out and sending it back to them?
Object for.
Well, the main difference I would see there is to make sure that the questions asked were understood and that I was getting the proper answer back based on the knowledge that the individual giving me the answer had.
Okay.
And to be sure that everything was filled out.
Okay. And I think we've already established there were a couple of things that weren't filled out on the application. You agree with that?
There was one.
I guess the thing we didn't get to, or I think we started to, and I think there were some speculation objections, but I guess whether or not Delaney Nichols understood these questions and that her responses were accurately recorded on the application. And my question to you is, I guess, how do you go about that? How do you know whether or not she fully understands the questions and that you're accurately putting those responses down on the application?
Objective.
What's the basis of your objection?
Well, at least to me, the question, I can't tell whether you're asking as a general matter or as to Ms. Nichols specifically, because Ms. Nichols has testified.
Well, without you making a speaking objection, I mean, if you can cite it.
You asked me what the basis of my objection was.
If it, you know, I don't think it could be foundation because he's already established that.
I'm saying that it's
compound
unclear.
question and it's not argumentative.
It's vague and unclear,
Okay.
and I'm just putting it on the record.
Do you understand?
I'm not saying that he shouldn't answer.
Do you understand my question? Was that a vague question to you at all, or do you
Ask it again.
Okay. With your taking this application, how do you determine, or in this case, with Ms. Nichols, determine whether or not she understood the questions and that you properly put her answers down on the application?
Can I tell if she was lying or not? No. I can't make a determination on that.
Right, but I think what you testified to was that part of your job was to make sure she understood these questions.
Correct.
And my question to you is, how is it that you go about making sure that they understand?
Okay. When I would sit down with a prospective owner of a policy, in this case Delaney and Nichols, I would say, Antonio doesn't need to be here if you feel you can answer all of these questions for him. And if she indicated that she could, then I would start asking the questions. And when we got to stuff like birth date, it would be, you know, Antonio's birth date. Do you know Antonio's social security number? Because I have to have his number.
And it's your understanding that she did know all that information?
Yes, and one other way you can determine that she knew that is because I've got a social security number up here for him. I've got a social security number for her down here as the owner of that policy.
Do you also get social security information for the beneficiary?
No, it's not asked for.
But you do have a name, I guess, address?
Address and the relationship. Relationship is key.
Okay, why is that key?
Because the beneficiary and the owner of the policy has to have a, I guess you would call it a binding relationship with the insured. In other words, I can't take out a policy on you. I'm not related to you in any way, therefore I cannot be the owner or the beneficiary of a policy for you.
And I know exactly what you're saying. Are you familiar with the term insurable interest?
Yes.
Okay, and is that what we're talking
That's
about?
what we're
Objection to the extent that he's asking for legal definitions of insurable interest.
I have heard of insurable interest. I'm aware of it, and that would have been part of the legal aspect of getting a license.
Okay. So you are aware of the legal
Mhm.
terminology?
Mhm.
Okay. As far as the actual policy itself and the definitions page that I think we looked at earlier,
Mhm.
that was not something that you had with you the day that you went and
No.
took this
As an
out?
answer.
As an answer.
And that's not something that you went over with Delaney and Nichols?
Same objection.
I didn't have it. How could I go over it with her?
Do you agree with me that that's an important aspect of an insurance contract?
Yes.
Objection.
What's the basis of
You're
that?
asking for a legal conclusion. I don't know what important means, it's vague.
Okay. Well, he just testified that he's familiar with the legal aspects.
Of one term that has nothing to do with your subsequent question.
Well, let me lay the foundation. When you took this test for the insurance commissioner in Tennessee,
Mhm.
and you took a class, I guess you said it was 3 days long,
Correct.
did y'all go over the aspects of a life insurance contract and the definition section and the application?
Yes.
And I guess you're familiar with all that terminology, insurable interest, owner, beneficiary?
I'm familiar with it now as much as someone can be years later. I don't deal with it every day, and I'm not going to be familiar with the terms like I would paper distribution that I deal with every single day.
But at the time, though, you were licensed and you knew what
Mhm.
all that meant.
Correct.
I think based on the memo that we attached as Exhibit 4, I'll represent to you, I'm assuming this is what Midwest is claiming is the reason they rescinded the policy. My question to you is, I know that there was that one section on the policy.
Let me go back to what you just said. Nowhere in there does it state that that's why they rescinded the policy. What it states is that had they known that, they would have never issued a policy, but it doesn't say that's why they're rescinding it.
Okay. Let's talk about that. Let me ask you if you've ever seen that document before.
No, I have not.
Let's mark that as the next exhibit. Mr. Swenson, if you would read that letter
Okay.
that we just marked.
Out loud or to myself?
Just to yourself, that's fine.
Okay. Okay?
Okay, you've read through that. That's a letter, I guess. Well, I'll ask you, what does that look like to you?
It's a letter to Diane Nichols explaining why they rescinded the policy. And they rescinded the policy because there was misrepresentation on the section A and B on the application regarding within the past 5 years he had not had 3 or more moving violations or had his license suspended or revoked, and within the past 5 years had not been convicted of or awaiting trial for reckless driving, driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs, or a felony, or been on probation. And that further, when they did investigation, they found moving violations on his motor vehicle, motor vehicle records and medical records.
And I guess that's your understanding of why they rescinded the policy.
Correct.
Can you tell me what's the difference between rescinding a policy and canceling a policy?
Objective.
I don't know.
I guess all told, how long have you worked in the insurance industry or the insurance field? How many years?
Let's see. April of 2004. 2 years.
And you've been licensed in, I guess, just 3 states, or were you licensed in Florida as well?
I was licensed in Florida back in the early 60s for, well, I guess I would have been, I don't know if I would have been licensed for a full year since I only worked for the insurance company for 3 or 4 months, or if it would have been canceled at that point because I wouldn't have been appointed to an insurance company.
That section on the policy, I guess, with the intervals of the premium payment, whether it's yearly or monthly, or if it's an automatic draft, do you think the insurance company could have rescinded the policy based on that not being filled out?
Objective 4.
No,
Join.
Okay, why not?
Same.
because as I stated before, I had submitted along with the check and the application a document for an automatic monthly bank draft. So that would have indicated the 2713 was a monthly premium. Here's the documentation to have a monthly bank draft, and we only did that on monthly premium policies or applications.
From a hypothetical standpoint,
Okay?
if the insurance company would have rescinded this policy based on that, on one of those boxes not being checked, would you have gone to bat for Delaney Nichols and told them they needed to pay the policy?
I wouldn't have had an opportunity to.
And why is that?
I wouldn't have known why they were doing it.
But I'm saying hypothetically, let's say that we're sitting here today and that's the reason why. Would you-
Objection. I think he's answered the
And
question.
unless I knew the reason for them rescinding the policy, I couldn't do anything. And I don't know that Midwest would allow me to talk with them regarding it. The agent didn't talk with Midwest directly. The only time I could talk with Midwest while I was an agent there is when I was a district sales leader. The district could talk to them, no one else could. You would get chewed out if you called the insurance agency direct as just an agent, because they didn't allow that.
And so, I mean, even if you had questions about something, or
I would have to go through the district sales leader. He would have to contact them And then based on what they told him, they'd come back to me, so I couldn't go to them directly.
So you were never a district sales?
Yes, I was. I told you I was.
Okay, and so when you
At
were...
that point, I contacted the insurance company almost on a daily basis for information regarding health or life policies. You know, where are we in the process? Because when you put in specifically a health policy, and I know you wanted to talk about life, and I don't know if it did the same way with life, but from the time the application was submitted, there were 60 days for them to issue a policy. If it wasn't issued within 60 days, no policy would be issued, the agent would be charged back the advanced commission on it. So it was of interest to agents, if you were getting near the 60-day period, what are they doing? What's the holdup? Most of the holdup would be because they had sent out information to the doctor and the doctor did not respond. So as a district sales leader, I would get that information. I would call the agent who wrote the policy and say, on this policy, they don't have information back from the doctor. You are to contact the applicant and ask them to get a hold of the doctor and say, please answer this or I can't get a policy. So as a district, I would get information like that on almost a daily basis. I would be doing it because of ongoing policies and, you know, what's going on with this. Or if they needed information and it didn't come back, to get to the agent and say, where are we? So I could let them know, because at 60 days, you were losing all your commission.
Right. And so I guess when you step down as a district agent.
District sales leader, I could no longer contact the insurance company.
Okay.
My district agent, which I believe his name was Mike Vogler, couldn't remember it earlier, but I would have to go to him or to Jim McGahee, the regional manager, to get me information. And they were very, very strict about that, because when I would call as a district, they would say, what's your name? What's your agent number? Hold on. They'd verify it and say, okay, you're a district, we can talk to you.
Do you know why?
So they wouldn't have hundreds of agents calling every day, tying up people that needed to be doing other things. They wanted just the district managers to be involved in all of this, so there were fewer people to deal with.
I know earlier we talked, I guess you were talking about mainly health applications, but diabetes being a reason why you just would stop the application process.
Correct.
Are there other, I guess, questions that could have been answered affirmatively that would have stopped the application
On
process?
health, anything regarding heart would have stopped the application. If someone was pregnant, it would stop it. If they had had a cesarean, it would stop it. If they had AIDS, it would stop it. If they had a brain disorder, it would stop it. There were just kidney wouldn't necessarily stop it. Ear, nose, and throat wouldn't. Skin disorders wouldn't necessarily. Oh shoot, there was something. Oh, high blood pressure would not stop it, but it would rate it up. And if they listed high blood pressure on a health policy, I would tell them, you know, I'm going to have to rate you up, and it may not be approved, but it will cost you more if it is approved.
Could you tell them how much more was that in your computer?
Yep. If I remember, it was 25% on the health part of it. In other words, if they had doctor visits and prescription and all that, that wouldn't affect that. It would affect the health part of the premium. 25%, as I remember.
And that's, I know we've been talking we kind of switched gears to health policies. In regards to life policies, did that same rule apply as
No.
far as health?
It wouldn't necessarily, as we had stated before, high blood pressure is gonna cause you to have to go to the doctor and have more prescriptions and everything else. It isn't necessarily gonna kill you.
And so I guess it's not necessary to get someone's medical records and everything on that condition. You just can go ahead and rate it up, what, 25%?
Well, what I would normally tell, whether it was health or life, is that they're gonna get records from the Medical Information Bureau. Every time you go to a doctor, the doctor submits information to the Medical Information Bureau. So everything in your health history is there. So, we need to get accurate answers. On a health policy, on a life policy, had I marked yes on any of those, I would have had to state that I don't know if this will cause the policy to be rated up or to be declined.
And I guess you said Medical Information Bureau. What exactly is that?
It's the CIA of insurance, is the best way.